So if the question is what's the headline at Cannes this year, obviously Cannes is just starting, but we have had the good fortune of meeting with a bunch of people over the past couple of days. I think if you think back to the beginning of the industry 30 years ago or so, it was a little bit of the Wild West. Anything you could imagine you could make happen. The internet disrupted traditional media back then, and now we're going through this kind of same thing happening with AI disrupting the internet. So we're wrestling with rethinking lots of the things that we've built over the past 3 decades, rethinking the role that agents and bots play, intermediating the relationship between brands and consumers, and everything that we've kind of thought about as it relates to measurement, as it relates to kind of the architecture of the supply chain is being rethought. So there's no shortage of things for us to do. It's really a matter of prioritization. What do we focus on first, and then what do we work on next? And there's obviously opportunity and challenge that comes with this disruption, so we're trying to kind of take the bull by the horns and move us into the next chapter.
So David, as we know, AI is everywhere, Cannes included. When it comes to the creative conversations, the tech demos, the deal making, AI is part of those conversations. As the IAB obviously has been clear that the industry needs guardrails. So with that in mind, where does the IAB stand right now on setting those standards? And what does responsible AI adoption actually look like at scale?
That's a big question. If you think back to the early days of the standard ad package, if you remember that back in the early days of the internet, that was about 2002, 2003. And the internet advertising world really took off in 1996. So it was 7 or 8 years before we came up with a set of standards, because standardization and innovation don't always kind of work together. We're going through the same thing again. So AI has really exploded over the past 2 or 3 years. We are starting as an industry to put together some guardrails around transparency and disclosure. We're now starting to think about what do ads look like in an LLM context, in a chatbot context. So we're doing it's the same thing all over again in a much more accelerated timeline, which I think is pretty exciting.
David, another thing that's exciting, looking back at 2025, IAB's research showed that the digital economy has grown to $4.9 trillion and supports over 28 million US jobs. But there's a real economic uncertainty right now. How are you seeing that tension show up in how brands and agencies are actually making investment decisions?
It's a great question. I would say that the pandemic, which was not that long ago, really brought into focus the idea that you need to be agile. So agility was clearly kind of paramount, and you needed to kind of think about testing, learning, and optimizing in real time. And we're doing the same thing now. I think the days of annual planning, when I was in the business and I was on the agency side, we were work on an annual plan, we'd do the upfront, we'd get in the market. I'm not sure that that's entirely gone, but I think it's much more in the moment, closer to the moment of execution. And that's because of the uncertainty. We need to have the ability to be flexible based on what's going on in the industry, and I think that's going to stick around for some time. The other thing is short-termism. If things are not working in the immediate term, you kind of move on. There's not a lot of appetite for what we call long-term brand building, which I think is a shame. So I think balancing those two things is actually quite important.
David, in addition to AI and economic uncertainty, the industry is also talking a lot about consolidation. Fewer channels, more accountability, tighter supply chains, et cetera. Are brands and agencies becoming more disciplined with media spending, or is complexity still getting in the way?
I think complexity is a factor of our business that's not going to go away anytime soon. We're far beyond the 3 television networks and the handful of print titles. I think that we're now using technology and data to make our jobs as planners and strategists much more efficient and effective. So I don't think that the complexity is something that we're going to ever move away from. It's just how do we manage that complexity. Fragmentation has been around in this business for a very, very long time. I think it's going to continue to explode.
David, as you mentioned in our last conversation, this is the IAB's 30th anniversary.
Yes.
Looking back at how far digital advertising has come, what gives you the most confidence about where the industry is headed next?
If you look out on the cross-set, if you look at Cannes, you see an industry that is resilient, that is resourceful, that is optimistic. I mean, the world is a pretty challenging place, I would say, on lots and lots of fronts. Consumer confidence in the US is at an all-time low, and yet we are still an industry of builders. We are still an industry that is looking to make the next thing better than the last. And I get a great deal of confidence and I get a great deal of energy from that. So I think Cannes is a manifestation of all the good that we have in the industry. So I'm optimistic.